What's up? Welcome in. It is a Thursday, Friday Junior, as we get closer and closer to another incredible weekend in sports. We're going to get it started tonight, kinda. It's Jets and Patriots, so I'm not really sure what exactly to make out of that one, but we'll talk about it. T's going to join me a little bit later. We'll have our college football Saturday, our four favorite plays from the weekend. Looks like we're having some Facebook problems. So we'll see if we can't get that rectified. But hey, it is what it is. So we'll get into that. Big weekend, obviously, in the college football world. Positioning as we get closer and closer to the end of the season here. We've kind of talked about it a little bit over the last couple of days. You've got the ACC and the Big 12 and conundrum at the top of both conferences. The difference is one of the conferences is playing really good football as a whole, the Big 12, and the other one in the ACC might not actually get their conference champion. Is it likely? I would say, I don't know. A lot's got to happen, but it's a possibility. And the more James Madison and the more South Florida keep winning, the ACC is a mess. And the absolute revolt that will come from ACC football fans if the ACC is left out of this situation. Oh, my goodness. You thought Florida State had a gripe a couple of years ago. See, and that's what you would think about just talking about it off the top of your head. You would go, well, I mean, the ACC should. I still think the best team in the ACC is Georgia Tech. But, I mean, we could be looking at a conference championship game that's Pitt and SMU. And I'm not throwing shade. We've talked about Rhett Lashley and what he's done at SMU a lot on this show. Freaking love Rhett Lashley. But when you've got a very strong Big 12, you've got a very top-heavy Big 10, you've got, I would say, a fairly top-heavy SEC, it's possible. We'll get Tony's thoughts on that here in a little bit. But other stuff in the sports world that's going on right now, sometimes you can't just You can't make stuff up. Like, there's already people fighting with each other and pissing and moaning about, the MVP award and getting ready to slam and attack all of Aaron Judge's numbers or slam and attack all of Cal Raleigh's numbers when it comes to the AL MVP. Brent Rooker, favorite of the program. Excellent freaking follow on X, by the way. And I'm going to paraphrase this because I don't have it up in front of me. But yesterday he goes, hey, why don't we remember tomorrow that both guys had sensational seasons and not use one's failures in certain categories to attack the other one and their legitimacy of winning and blah, blah, blah. He's basically saying, hey, it's cool if your guy doesn't win and you're upset about it. But at the same time, let's not spend the whole day attacking the guy that won for flaws in certain numbers. Both of I don't think you could go wrong picking either guy to be MVP. You really can't. What Cal Raleigh did this year, we talked about it so many times on the show, especially Mack, a former catcher at the college level. I mean, he knows what that's like, way more than a lot of us do. And then to go up there and put up the offensive numbers he did. And it wasn't even that. It was the fact that, and I don't remember if it finished this way, but he had basically gone the entire season without a pass ball as we got into the postseason. So not only was he great this year offensively, but he's also one of the best catchers in all of baseball. Aaron Judge, I mean, I know what Ohtani does, and I know there's that debate now between Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani, and I think both sides are fascinating arguments. I really do. But I think maybe we see some recency bias here. Maybe Cal Raleigh gets the votes because certain people don't want Aaron Judge to win it again. Sounds stupid, but you know it's true. So that'll be interesting to see those come out tonight. If you missed it yesterday, Paul Skeens, Tarek Skubal, your National and American League Cy Young winners. Mac talked about his want to get right back into baseball and breaking baseball stuff down and everything yesterday and on Tuesday. And I've had to try and back Mac off a little bit. Like, hey, give me a month. Let me get past the holiday for fat people like me, Thanksgiving. We get in that first week of December, then I'll start peeking at some baseball stuff. I will say this, though. I do enjoy this part of the beginning of the offseason. Skeens denies report that he's wanted to be a Yankee is since day one focused on Pirates. Because somebody yesterday said, oh, I was teammates with him, and all he talks about is being a Yankee. Those are my favorite stories that come out of these early general manager meetings and stuff like that, is all the bullshit. And we talk about this a lot around the NFL draft, bullshit season. Be careful who you're reading, from what you're reading, because you never know. This is bullshit season for baseball right now, and it's incredible. This is going to have a lot of impact on a lot of different things. We have talked ad nauseum about the San Diego Padres and their issues, in the direction of the franchise. Are they going to spend? Are they going to sell? We know AJ Preller is the definition of an F them picks guy. But the family of the late Peter Seidler is exploring a potential sale of the Padres, the team announced on Thursday. This comes from Alden Gonzalez of ESPN. In a statement, Padres chairman John Seidler, the franchise's control person and Peter's older brother, wrote, the team will, quote, undertake this process with integrity and professionalism in a way that honors Peter's legacy and love for the Padres and lays the foundation for the franchise's long-term success. So, it doesn't say that the family is going to outright sell the team, but they are using a couple of firms to create a group of investors with the intent of likely selling the team, which we knew with the way that this fight between the families started, and obviously in a situation nobody wanted to be a part of, and Peter Seidler passing away at just the age of 63. Dude, absolutely Padres fan to the core. But we've seen them slash their payroll. They've got some constraints with about 3 guys. They just hired another puppet for AJ Preller to be the manager. It's going to be interesting to see how this thing plays itself out. Because we know that the Dodgers are the benchmark. San Francisco chasing them. A lot of eyes on Buster Posey in this offseason. San Diego, Arizona, what did they do? Are they about to ship off their borderline MVP candidate every year, Ketel Marte? And then the Rockies are the Rockies. Paul DePodesta is probably going to run things from Laguna Beach like he did with the Browns anyways. But it's definitely a chase in the NL West, and the Padres are in this, and hopefully this brings a resolution to it sooner, because the Padres are in this holding pattern. Max talked about it. TJ's talked about it. We've all talked about it. We see it every year from the Padres. They are a team that wants to spend to compete, which is what they started to do under Seidler's direction. But they're a team that doesn't know how the ownership thing's going to shake out. So we're in this holding pattern of bad contracts and having to try and compete the best we can now, which is usually shipping off any one of our top 5 prospects at the trade deadline to try and hopefully win with rental players. There's going to be a lot of changes in San Diego. Dylan Cease, likely not back. Michael King, likely not back. It's going to be a very fascinating offseason. Speaking of fascinating things, as we go into what is a crucial weekend in the college football world, and if you're watching along, feel free to comment along. Again, make sure you're liked, subscribed, or following. We talked about it last night. You'd be surprised how many people we talk to that think they're subscribed when they're actually not. So do us a favor and check that out. Like, follow goes a lot longer than you think. College Football Committee Chairman Mack Rhoades has stepped down from his role as the CFP chairman and as the Baylor athletic director. CFP Executive Director Rich Clark told Heather Dinich of ESPN on Thursday that Rhoades will step down from his role with the committee at this time for personal reasons. The CFP likely will try and replace Rhoades and will work on naming a new chair. Rhoades told ESPN that he initiated the leave from his Baylor role but declined to explain why. So, some allegations were brought up against Mr. Rhoades, the athletic director at Baylor. Do not involve Title IX, student welfare, or NCAA rules, and do not involve the football program, indicating it is a separate incident from Rhoades' alleged altercation with the football player during one of their September games. Apparently, he went up to tight end Michael Trigg about the color of the shirt he was wearing during the September 20th game against Arizona State. School had issued a release saying the incident was thoroughly reviewed and investigated in accordance with university policies. Appropriate actions were taken, and the matter is now closed. Essentially, from what I heard this morning on the Pat McAfee show with Heather Dinich on, there's a couple of things at play here. Apparently, when he went up to this tight end and was questioning the color of his shirt that he was wearing because he wasn't playing, the AD didn't understand why. Apparently, after the game, he went up to one of the Baylor coaches. Don't know if it was Dave Aranda or not, but one of the Baylor coaches, still bent about this situation, why this kid wasn't playing, apparently grabbed that coach around the neck and was having a very spirited conversation with him. I heard about this like 3 weeks ago, I think it was. And it just popped into my head. I go, well, that's not good. We're only in, this coming up on at that time, we were coming up on the initial release of the college football playoff rankings. And now it really hits its head today. So how this process works, which is, I found this out this morning, so you're going to find out with me. Basically, another Big 12 athletic director will replace Mack Rhoades. They likely will pick one, and his name is slipping my mind right now, the athletic director at the University of Utah, who's been involved in this process before. They won't pick somebody that hasn't been involved in this process. As far as who becomes the chair, it can either be this one that they're bringing in, the athletic director from the Big 12, or they have the right to select somebody who was on the existing committee to begin with. What's interesting here is if you're going to go pull, an athletic director with experience from the Big 12 into this position, and the AD at Utah is the one that comes to everybody's mind because he's involved in this process. He's been involved in this process a few times. Here's the problem. You have to recuse yourself from everything about your school at that point. So when we look at this, and I don't know all the athletic directors. I know a couple of them from the Big 12 that have been involved in this. Two of them are in the top of the mix for the conference championship right now, and that's Utah and Texas Tech. It's an interesting situation here. How does that change the committee going forward? Who knows? We're going to have to wait and see on Tuesday night when the next set of rankings come out, but definitely not the best time story for the college football playoff. I'm really interested to see what they do with that spot. Other than that, that covers pretty much everything. Brian Kelly's filed a lawsuit against LSU. They're still having a pissing contest about $20, $25, $30 million or the full $53 million buyout. Apparently now LSU said that they didn't say he was fired. What a freaking mess, dude. What an absolute mess when you have the best job. And this is a Florida fan saying this. When you have the best open job in the college football landscape right now, a program that can very easily, with the resources they have, come back into the forefront permanently on a regular basis. And you've got a bunch of higher ups at the university, governors, our friend Jeff Landry, and everybody piping off and spouting off at the mouth. I got to think it's thinning the herd a little bit of potential candidates. Why would you want to deal with that nonsense? Be micromanaged as a football coach by a bunch of freaking politicians that don't know how to spell the word football? Nah, there's plenty of other jobs. It's an absolute disaster. And if you're an LSU alum, LSU fan, you got to just be disgusted. It's going to be really interesting as we get into, the situation here. And again, T will join me here in just a little bit, and we'll get into our Saturday. But it's going to be very interesting to see how all of this plays out. Because you've got schools like Penn State, Florida, LSU, Virginia Tech, I think, is a very, very good job. I mean, look at the ACC right now. What does it take to build a powerhouse in the ACC? Not a whole lot. Dude, when they do enter Sandman into that stadium, it doesn't matter if that team sucks or if they're number one in the country. The vibe is ridiculous. I think that's a very good job. I think Arkansas is a very intriguing job to me as well because they have money. Ryan Silverfield from Memphis sounds like that's his job. But some of these names that are coming up for some of these big jobs are involved in, looks like they're going to be deeply involved in the college football playoff. So if you're a Florida, if you're an LSU, if you're a Penn State, what is your patience level? How long can you wait? Massive game this weekend between Florida and Ole Miss. It's basically Florida's bowl game. It's Florida's national championship game. It's Florida's Super Bowl. It's a Florida fans Super Bowl. Because if you knock Lane Kiffin out of the college football playoff, which is very likely if they were to lose to Florida, does Florida get their man? Who knows? Lane Kiffin's also up for the New York Giants job, according to certain people. First NHL coach that gets fired. Lane Kiffin's going to be up for his job too. So it's going to be a really interesting weekend. It's going to be a really interesting, the next 2 weeks in college football, not only will tell us a lot, but I think are going to be pretty chaotic. You've got a really, really good schedule this weekend. Got another set of really good games the weekend after that. This ACC thing of the potential that their ACC champion can miss the college football play. There's a lot of stuff that's going to happen. It's a great friggin' time to be a sports fan, man. And finally, before we get into some college football plays and talk about tonight's Thursday night football game, the last couple of weeks, my final word on Friday has been about the YouTube TV and ESPN Disney pissing contest situation, which sounds like now they're closer to a resolution. I have two things here. One of my best friends in all of life sent me this morning. And I am going to read this as a direct quote. If the fucking government can finally agree on ending the shutdown, Disney and YouTube can settle their petty bullshit and come to an agreement. This is effing ridiculous now. I think spoken for everybody that has YouTube TV. Again, we're all about the fan here. Make sure, because I found it very convenient the way YouTube TV did this. So by now you should have gotten an email about your $20 credit for the temporary inconvenience of not having the ESPN networks on your YouTube TV account. Now, YouTube TV not wanting to spend any more, Google not wanting to spend any more money than they have to, you have to physically go in and redeem it yourself. It is not applied to your bill. I don't think a lot of people know that. So that's my first piece of advice. Go check your email. It is really easy. I did it yesterday. I clicked on the link they put in the email. It took me right to the settings page, and all I had to do was click one more blue button. Boom, my credit was applied. I think it's chicken shit that we have to go in and physically do it ourselves, but if you're Google at this point, you're banking that a lot of people probably don't pay attention and won't redeem it, so you're not actually giving that much back to the consumer. Shocking, right? Corporate tactics. Who knew? But the other thing I'm wondering, especially since it's close, or it sounds like they're getting closer, according to what we've heard, which basically means, hey, we're happy to come to an agreement. You know, we apologize on behalf of both networks to, you know, any inconvenience it's caused. 3 months later. Oh, by the way, your YouTube TV is going up another $9 a month to make up for all the money we lost and the higher premiums. I wouldn't recommend letting it sit there and forgetting to redeem it, because it wouldn't surprise me if it just magically disappeared if you don't redeem it. So go in there and get your $20, damn it. Again, a chicken shit way to do it, that you have to physically go in and actually do it yourself, but to each his own, and here or there. All right, let's talk about some college football spots this weekend. Again, T will be joining me here in just a little bit, so I'll get started on my half of it. And I'm going to start in another place that I've talked about quite a bit this year. The Cincinnati team. I love quarterback Brendan Thorsby. I really, really do. Arizona, they just flat haven't been good when they've had to play outside of Tucson. You play them in Tucson, tough team to beat. BYU had to go to overtime to do it. But for the most part, Arizona's just been blah on the road. And everybody's drinking the Wildcat Kool-Aid and forgetting about Cincinnati here. 21-2, the TD to interception ratio for Brendan Thorsby. Arizona absolutely sucks on the road. They're 5-1 at home. The only loss was, as I mentioned, to BYU. They're 1-2 on the road. So for me, this is an easy one. Bearcats all day, -6. I'm actually dropping out a couple of solid 6s here, which I don't necessarily love to do, but Arizona's not good on the road, man. They're really not good on the road. And Cincinnati has not been an easy place for anybody to play this year. The Bearcats still very much in the mix at the top of that Big 12 conference at 5-1 in conference play. They're 5-0 at home. The Cincinnati team, really, really good team that not a lot of people are talking about. They will be, because Cincinnati's next game is at home against BYU. Date and time to be determined still. That's a massive game because of the top of the Big 12 standings. I don't think Cincinnati's going to be looking ahead here. And again, Arizona is, as the kids like to say, their cheeks on the road. So next one, I'm going to go to another big game and a huge one in the SEC, and that's Alabama hosting Oklahoma. And we've talked about this. John Mateer has not looked good since coming back from that injury. Our concerns with Oklahoma early on in the season was the lack of the running game for them. And if Mateer had to be the guy that was doing the bulk of the running workload for them, how bad of a situation that was. Well, again, since Mateer's come back, he's looked kind of compromised as a quarterback. He hasn't been the same player. Did they bring him back too early? Who knows? We're not going to find out that answer. And Torrey Blaylock has had an okay year for Oklahoma. But, 33 yards against Texas, 10 yards against Ole Miss, 1 carry for no yards against Tennessee. And what do we talk about when we talk about Alabama? Well, Ty Simpson and the way that they're really coming into their own. The death hoodie, the black Alabama Nike Dry Fit hoodie that they keep like 7 extra of in a secure locked place in Alabama because it's Kalen DeBoer's good luck hoodie. The knock on Bama is they can't stop the run. Well, you've got a compromised quarterback in John Mateer. On the road at Bryant-Denny. Alabama firmly in a bye position and obviously wants to hold on to that. The spread has moved up a half point this morning. I don't trust Oklahoma in this game to get a run game going to compromise Alabama's defense. And what I see, as good as the Sooners have been defensively, if Alabama's offensive line can keep Ty Simpson upright, Ty Simpson's going to pick this defense apart. You know, a lot of people giving the love to Julian saying he should be the Heisman. Ohio State gets a primetime night game, rarity. They're going to really try and show him off this weekend. I think Alabama's going to try and do the same thing with Ty Simpson. And you don't have to do much with Ty. Every week he's looked more and more and more and more and more comfortable in the pocket. He's really, really. We were talking about this in the group text the other night. So you had Garrett Nussmeier and you had Drew Aller. And obviously Aller got hurt, so I'll use Nussmeier as more of an... Has anybody hurt their stock this year more than Garrett Nussmeier to be a pro? The answer is no. Has anybody helped their stock to be a pro more than anybody? The answer is yes. His name is Ty Simpson. TJ jumping into the fold right now. Whoa, that's a small screen. There you are. What's going on, my brother?
What's up, buddy? How are you?
Well, another day in paradise here. I'm going to finish up my Oklahoma pick so we can get to your first of your Saturday here. I've got Oklahoma or Alabama covering another number of 6 here. It has gone up to 6.5. Again, I think you're still fine there. I don't trust Oklahoma to get a run game going against Alabama. T is going to get us started. And man, what a freaking scene this will be. Northwestern at Wrigley Field. What you got in this one, man?
Well, do you remember a couple years ago when they first started this quote tradition, and they had to go the one way only on offense because they botched it up when they did the design? That was such a circus, but I remember that fondly. No Justice Haynes for Michigan, though, this week. That's going to be huge. And I like this Northwestern defense, and I don't think they're going to have to worry about any of these shenanigans with changing jersey numbers. What a bunch of hokey crap that was. I've got Northwestern to cover 11.5 against Michigan at Wrigley.
Yeah, I do remember that game specifically that you're talking about. It was a freaking absolute monkey trying to F a football. Great setting. I mean, awesome setting. You can see it there. And it's Wrigley Field, so you know everybody's going to be 10 sheets to the freaking wind and partially blowing out of the bleachers at this point. But, yeah, what an absolute disaster that was. I'll go to my next one here, and then we'll get you caught back up. But we've got Texas and Georgia. An interesting game here because I believe there's two sides to this story. I think there's a lot of people seeing that, hey, Texas has managed their way through the SEC schedule. They're 4-1. The offense is starting to get a little bit of a rhythm. Georgia is a team that typically starts slow. This line has moved up a half point from overnight as well. The thing with Georgia, and I just talked about Ty Simpson and John Mateer, it's Gunnar Stockton. We didn't know what we were going to get out of Gunnar Stockton going into the year. Arch Manning, way overhyped. But the one thing this Georgia team has done, and you've seen it on Kirby Smart's face, and he's talked about it, this is a young team in key positions still. This is obviously a massive game for both of these teams. Texas still has eyes on screwing with the top of the SEC, which means they're going to have this game against Georgia, and they're going to have to get Texas A&M when they get a chance to play Texas A&M. That being said, The way this Georgia team closes games should be very, very scary to everybody in college football right now. The game is in Athens. It's under the lights. I think this is going to be a big problem spot for Texas here because their defense, I think, is going to get tested at a level that they probably haven't seen so far this year. Another 6-point game. I'll lay the 6. It is 6.5 now. Again, I think you're still fine there. If it gets over 7, that's where I'd have a little deeper conversation with myself. T, let's go to your next one here. And you're going off the beaten path. Lobos and Rams.
The bowl eligible New Mexico Lobos at that. Coach Eck has done a fantastic job with the move from Idaho. This program got a little rejuvenated with Bronco Mendenhall a couple years ago, and now Coach Eck is just going berserk in New Mexico terms. I mean, this team's 6-3. This is a team that didn't win 6 games over 4 years. So this team is playing good football. Lane has been pretty good at quarterback, but it's Bankston out of the backfield that's been the difference for the Lobos this year. And Colorado State is walking wounded. They blew out their coach earlier this year, and they are just trying to play out the string and be done. I've got the Lobos covering a huge number here, 14.5 in Albuquerque.
Albuquerque. Man, I've got some stories about that friggin' place. All right, my last one here, and then T's got a couple to finish up. TCU BYU, very good game. Obviously, earlier as I was talking about the mess that is the top of the Big 12 standings, BYU still very firmly in that place. And people are going to call me crazy, and I was glad I was able to wait on this one till you got here because I really want to know if you think I'm off my rocker here. Last week, we saw BYU go into Texas Tech, and they got their asses kicked. They got the tortillas slapped right out of them last week, and we're never really in that game outside of the first quarter. But I kind of noticed something in the play calling that kind of got my brain going here. I think when we got about to the early part of the third quarter, I kind of got the sense from BYU that they were backing off the throttle a little bit. And it was one of those games that you could tell, hey, this got away from us. We're still going to compete. That's what we do. But almost like, hey, I'm going to keep this in the bag because there's a good chance that we see this team again in a little less than a month. I kind of got that sense. Now they're back in Provo, a very good TCU team that can hang. They can play here. I think we're going to see something out of this BYU team this weekend that's full of piss and vinegar and angry to get back on that field with what they laid out last week. Numbers 4.5 in this one. I am going to lay points with the 4th team in my Saturday here. I got the Cougars minus 4.5. I don't know if I'm crazy, T, but it kind of seemed like that a little bit to me last week.
Yeah, I think that's a great call. I think this BYU team is also coming into this game embarrassed. And that's the worst type of team you want to play, is the team that got embarrassed the week before.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to your next one. Staying off the beaten path again, you are, Mr. Mountain West man.
You know, I'm going to my strengths here. Fresno State and Wyoming from the second armpit of America. Fresno State just completely destroyed Boise last week, and it was their defense that led the way. Carson Conklin didn't look that great at all. The quarterback play over the last couple of weeks between him and EJ Warner has been very inconsistent, but it's been the defense that's been the difference. This defense is 15th nationally, and Wyoming is not great on offense. They're okay on defense, but the Fresno State defense is going to be way too much. And with a defense like that and a not so good Wyoming team, Fresno doesn't have to score a lot to win this game. I think they'll score enough to cover the 3.5 and walk away with the V in Victory Valley.
The second. What's the first armpit of America then? I'm curious.
Tucson.
We might get a Mackenzie message here soon. They are the gatekeepers.
But hats off to EGs, right?
Oh, you son of a bitch. All right. T's next game is one I kind of hinted on earlier, so I'll tell you what I was kind of thinking earlier. We go to the Vaught in Oxford. Again, I'm telling you, if you haven't experienced an SEC Saturday, make sure you do it. And towards the top of your bucket list would be a trip to the Grove because it's incredible. Florida taking on hopefully the visor guy that will coach Florida. The spread has actually dropped to less than 2 touchdowns. It's Ole Miss minus 13.5 now. Florida's players have a chance. It's a Florida fan Super Bowl this week. Does Florida have a single freaking prayer to knock Ole Miss out of the college football playoff this weekend on the road?
No. But I think you're going to see an inspired Florida effort here. Lagway has not been very good lately, and I think he wants to come out especially and be great this week. Yes, Mississippi is 9-1. Yes, they're playing at home. Yes, they have the path to the playoff in front of them. But I see a Florida team that's desperate for some respect here. And I took the over in this game because I think Florida's going to come out and I think you're going to see a pretty decent first half out of this team. I don't know if it's going to last the entire game. I hope it does for your sake and for the Visor's sake, but I think this game's going to go over.
Yeah, I think that's a good call here. Ole Miss, like 33% of their offense is explosive plays. Most of their conference games have been one-score games, but you're not talking about equal combatants on the playing field here. So it's interesting. Obviously, the Florida fans want to see Florida do it because that means maybe a quicker path to Lane Kiffin. I forgot, again, because I'm a horrible friend, to put the numbers together on all 4 of yours. Mine all together, if you want to mess around with that stuff, plus 1228. Otherwise, they're minus 110s, all straights. Billy V checking in.
Sure do think. Yes,
Yeah.
I do, Billy V.
And if I remember correctly, Billy and I were having a conversation the other day, and he got Florida at 14.5. So good there because it has dropped. Tonight, T, we've got an interesting one in the National Football League. As far as our Thursday night triple option picks last week, we went 1-5. TJ got us the only one of the only 2 touchdowns in the damn game from Troy Franklin. Other than that, we sucked last week. And let's go to the flavor of the week, Drake May and the New England Patriots, Breece Hall and the Jets. This is an interesting game for me. Obviously, the Jets, T, have won 2 games in a row, so they're feeling fat and happy amongst themselves. Never mind the fact that Justin Fields threw for 54 total yards last week, and one of those was a 42-yard touchdown pass. So you can do the math there. They also needed a special teams touchdown, 2 special teams touchdowns, and a fumble to beat the hapless Browns. Patriots 7 in a row. I made the comparison a couple of weeks ago, T, that the Patriots remind me of last year's Commanders with a better defense. Young quarterback who's really good, coach that inspires a building to change the culture, and they rip off a bunch of wins against crappy quarterbacks. Hence, that's what the Patriots have done this year, and it's led us to this kind of malarkey. That's your MVP frontrunner list, and if you see the name at the top of it, it is Drake May, who is now even tied with Matt Stafford. Depends on the book you're at, but Drake May is a favorite for the MVP. I don't know if I can necessarily agree with that, but your first thoughts on Jets-Pats tonight.
It's a second screen game because of the Jets. Like the Patriots are fun. I think we talked about this last week. They completely nailed their hire for a coach in the offseason. They had to get a good guy after last year's disaster. They got Vrabel, and he's been fantastic. They gave the ball to Drake May early last year to look, you're probably going to have a not so great rookie season, but it's your team. And he's shown that he's grown with the team. I love the weapons around him with Henderson. Diggs was a good acquisition. Butte, I don't think he's going to play this week. But this team's doing everything right. They're doing everything right. And I think your analogy to last year's Washington team is a perfect bang-on analogy.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see because it's really everybody's kind of first chance on the big stage to see Drake May and see what he can put together here. And I'm not saying he hasn't had a good year. He's had a very, very good year. The attitude change in New England just in general. The Jets are the Jets, and maybe they'll figure it out next year. Again, I can't wait for the draft to see how much they screw up the hole that they got in their trades that they made here. It's interesting because we know the divisional game, large point spread theory. Look what Miami did to Buffalo in both games. I get all that. But there's also certain times that you're dealing with two different ends of the hierarchy here. And penthouse and outhouse comes to mind.
Mm-hmm. Big time.
I see the Jets in a position tonight where they're going to have to throw the football, which is not something that they can do very well. And I think this one's got a good chance to get real freaking sideways real quick. So let's go through our 3 plays here. I'll start. I'm going with Drake May on an alt line for 250 yards passing. Got it at a minus 105. I did that yesterday morning, so check on that. But I think you're safe for 250 here. I don't like going much higher than this because Stevenson's out, Hooper's out, Booty's out. Good thing for the Patriots is the Jets are also Booty, so I think Drake May has a chance to go for 250 here. So that's my first drop down for this game. You've got a couple interesting ones here. Let's save your number for later. You've got a couple of kickers, so fire me a kicker, will you?
I've got New England's kicker Borregales under 7.5 kicking points because I think he's just going to be kicking extra points all night long.
I think that's a very safe bet. I wrestled with this one. You've really started to see Diggs and May have a really good connection with each other. Diggs is averaging 5 catches, 50 plus a game. You know, Booty's obviously been the big horse in the passing game for them. But you're starting to see, like, young kid at quarterback, veteran receiver. Again, I can make a comparison to Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin last year. I think Diggs and him are getting it together. And while Diggs might be the number 1 tonight, the Jets don't have a number 1, a number 2, or number 3 corner to slow him down. So I'm going to play Stephon Diggs for a touchdown at plus 135. Give me another kicker here, and then we'll argue about this total.
I've got the number of punts in this game over 7.5 because I think that it's just going to be a punt parade for the Jets. I think they are going to punt every time they get the ball. I don't think they're going to be able to get out of their own way. So if they punt 7 times and the Patriots punt once, that covers the 8.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a market for it, you can find it out there. It is minus 105, and there are a lot of books that do offer those in there. All right, we've got a total here. I got the total at the hard number of 43. You got the total at the hard number of 43.5. Maybe. No, it's not possible. We can't both win this. I went over 43 here. Beat the Patriots defense. Gets a couple of short fields. I can also see a pick 6. The special teams unit for the Jets returning the ball good, covering a kickoff not good. It is a risky number because I think the Patriots have to do most of the heavy lifting here. But I can see this game being like a 33-13 kind of game. It's going to be tight, but I think it goes over.
See, and I've got to go in the other. I've got to go in the other way because I think this is going to be. I think it's going to be a little bit closer, but I have zero confidence in the Jets offense at all. We saw last week they could do punt returns, kickoff returns, and the occasional 41-yard lucky play. So I've got under 43.5. I think that this game can go one of two ways. It's either going to be a 10-7 game or it's going to be a 31-0 game.
Yeah, it's that the total is the one I'm kind of the most like it's going to be right on the number. Like other things I played tonight, Drake May over 5.5 rushing attempts. I love, like T likes to target kickers. I love to target quarterback rush yards and quarterback rush attempts because you got to remember a QB sneak, a kneel down. The kneel down is a rush attempt. So if you're, following a team where the quarterback's not going to get pulled and they get the chance to go victory formation, you're looking at least 3 rushing attempts right there. And you got Drake May, who's moved up and down the field all year. I got him over 23 rush yards tonight as well. All right, a couple minutes left here before we get out. We didn't get to talk about this game a ton last night. I mentioned that we were going to talk about it here today. You've got a battle Two teams trying to get the top spot in the NFC. Sunday Night Football, Lions and Eagles. I think a lot of people excited to see this one. Two physical, in your face, not afraid to talk a little shit kind of football teams. Sunday Night Football at the Link. It's going to be ridiculously fun to watch. Eagles 2.5-point favorites at home. I'm not sure which way to go on this one. We talk about the Eagles a lot, T, and it seems like every time you think they're going to internally combust, they're just, here we are again, and here we are again, and go figure, how he goes and makes a move for Jalen Phillips, and he picks up one of the key plays in the game last week. I mean, why the league just allows these guys to fall in Baltimore and Philadelphia's lap all the time, I have no idea. What do you think on Sunday Night Football?
I'm going to be on Mike Trout watch alert to see how many times he's shown on the TV in his end zone season seats, because he is a huge Eagles fan. This is a playoff preview, maybe, if they met in the conference championship game. I think that's a possibility here. But yeah, like you said, the Eagles just hang around and win games. Like that's just what they do. And but play or not, that's what they've been doing. The Lions seem to have found a little bit of magic again, even though, they blew out the Commanders last week. They lost that close one to the Vikings. They beat the Buccaneers. I thought that was a huge win for them. So this is going to say a lot for what happens in January in the NFC. The winner in this game is definitely going to have a leg or a tail up on everybody else.
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at the top of the NFC standings, because Philly's first, they win a tiebreaker over Seattle winning percentage conference games. Seattle's second, they win a tiebreaker over the Rams on best win percentage in division games. Detroit's third, they win a tiebreaker over Tampa based on head-to-head win percentage. So you've already got some feathers in the cap, aces up the sleeve here, playing for the top spot in this. And then when you look at the bottom side of the NFC, that's where you've got Chicago in, Green Bay in, San Francisco 1 out, Carolina 2 out. The NFC is ridiculously stacked right here, and this game's going to go a long way. When I look at Detroit, we've seen them in their game against the Packers earlier this year. They didn't look great. We saw them in the game against Kansas City. They looked horrible. And then we see them go out and drop the 44s and the 52s and the 38s and all that stuff. So I think that game's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. I have a slight lean to the Lions on the road as dogs here. I think at some point Philly's going to drop a game, and they're kind of in that part of their schedule that's a little kind of taxing. Yeah. And another reason why I think that the NFC is just going to be a crazy finish. Philly's got Detroit, they still have Chicago, they have the Chargers, and they have the Bills left on their schedule. So that's just Philly trying to hold on to the top spot there. So interesting stuff. Mac will have more on that Sunday. Tomorrow we'll recap Thursday Night Football. We'll look at a couple more of the NFL spots for the weekend, catch up on the NBA. So for everybody behind the scenes, for Vegas Mac, for T, I'm Mike. We'll talk to you tomorrow. We're out.